Let's talk about why Sukuna took such an interest in Megumi, to the point where he literally saved his life in Shibuya. Before we go any further though, I gotta give my manga spoiler warning. For my anime onlys, we're going deep into the trenches here, so you've been warned. Also, before we begin, thank you to Hero for the sponsored video tonight, and shout out to the Kansas City Chiefs analogy. So why is Sukuna so interested in Megumi? Well, the easy answer is because of 10 Shadows, because of Mahoraga, to adapt to infinity and beat Gojo. But that's actually not right, because Sukuna had an interest in Megumi before he even knew what Mahoraga was, or that Mahoraga could adapt to things. Sukuna's interest in Megumi starts right here in Season 1, and you might say, well yeah, because he saw Megumi about to summon Mahoraga, and he had the idea from then. But that's not right, because we know from in Shibuya, Sukuna did not know how Mahoraga's ability worked. He was figuring that out during the fight in Shibuya, so his interest here wouldn't have been about that. However, it is fair to say that it wasn't until Megumi started to summon Mahoraga in that Season 1 moment that Sukuna started feeling all sorts of ways. But it wasn't because of the potential Mahoraga offered him, it was because of the potential Megumi showed in that moment. You gotta remember that at this point in the story, Sukuna had only just incarnated in Yuji, and this was the first time in hundreds of years he was ready to wreak havoc on this era, but he couldn't because Yuji is a prison for him. So that was the top of his priority list. How do I get out of this cage? Now, he had fought Gojo, but it was literally only for 10 seconds, and he was at one finger worth of strength. So Sukuna at this point was not worried about Gojo. I don't think he was already plotting, how do I beat this guy? Sukuna is way more arrogant than that. He's never had a struggle when it comes to a fight in his life that we're aware of, so he definitely wasn't sweating Gojo at this point. His priority, again, was to get out of this cage. You also have to remember that for someone to eat one of Sukuna's fingers and survive is extremely rare. And I'm not talking about being a prison for Sukuna like Yuji is, I'm just talking about being a vessel for him in general because he is so powerful. So in this moment here in Season 1, I think Sukuna was excited at the prospect of having a potential vessel. So even though Sukuna doesn't know what Mahoraga is at this point, he can still sense the powerful technique that Megumi is about to summon, because you gotta remember that Sukuna is an absolute genius when it comes to Jujutsu sorcery. We're told that he can tell a curse technique is about to happen just from like the initial bubbling up of cursed energy. So that moment in Season 1 piqued his interest, and then in Season 2 he got to learn more about Mahoraga, and that obviously got him even more excited, because at this point he does know more about Gojo as well. And I'm not going to open the whole can of worms about, did Sukuna need Mahoraga to beat Gojo? I've got a video about Gojo versus Heian era Sukuna, so check that out if you want my thoughts on it, but we're just going to push that aside for now. Mahoraga and the adaptation was just a cherry on top for why Sukuna was interested in Megumi. And this culminates in one of, if not the most iconic moments in JJK, in Chain, where he takes over Megumi's body. And this wasn't just coincidence, this wasn't just chance. Sukuna had been planning this, and even plans this further beyond this point, intentionally suppressing Megumi's soul with the bath, with, taking out his sister. These were all moves to make him the perfect vessel. So I think it's fair to say that his original interest in Megumi was for that reason. Now, could Sukuna's plan have evolved as time went on, when he found out about Mahoraga, about adaptation, or even about some other use case for 10 Shadows that he still has up his sleeve? Yeah, absolutely, but it doesn't change the fact that when he initially got his interest in Megumi, he wouldn't have known those things. So it was purely about Megumi's potential as a vessel, at least in my opinion.